Title, and then my brokerage, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. So we have Frank from First American Title. First American helped us secure this room and the food. So Frank, if you just want to come up here and just say something real quick.
Yes, I'm Frank from First American Title. We're a large national title insurance company. City of Detroit. Jan and I have been doing business together a few years now. She cares about her customers. Her customers are always happy after the closing, so that's always good. This is important because what I see is the bad part of this where people buy a home and 2 years later they can't afford the property taxes. So knowing what your property taxes are going to be, beforehand is the most important thing. Good agents like Jan, they tell the people that's happening, so it's very important. And then if anyone needs like a copy of a deed of a property, a copy of a mortgage, just let Jan know. I can get you copies of any deeds or recorded documents anywhere in Detroit, pretty much the state of Michigan. So that's it.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Next slide. Okay, and I know there are a few real estate agents in here, so if you have any interest in finding out more about Berkshire Hathaway, becoming an agent with us, just finding out what we do, and this entire slide deck will get emailed to you. If you did not RSVP and we don't have your email, make sure you come find one of Sid or I before you leave, and we'll make sure you're on the distribution list. So you don't have to scan this now, but it will be there for you. But if you're interested, we specialize in downtown Detroit real estate, a lot of developer support and things like that. So we'd love to tell you more about it. Next slide. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to read your property tax bills, how to read your assessment notices, the neighborhood enterprise zone, tax abatement, what I learned from going through the appeals process and helping multiple people last year do it. A little bit about current property tax news, and then we have two special guests. We have Roberta Socia. She's a licensed appraiser, and she's going to give us her point of view about how she has been able to help people with tax appeals, analyzing their properties, making sure there's a lot of accuracies and things like that. And then we have Tom Fredericks. Tom was a guest last year. He's standing up in the back. He is a property tax attorney. He's helped many people appeal their property taxes, and he also used to sit on the Michigan Tax Tribunal as a judge. So he knows firsthand about, what it's like to meet the taxpayer in a situation of an appeal, and he'll have lots of insights for us then. So next slide. Okay. First, we'll start with the property tax bills. I'm just giving you like a remedial background on all of this. So you have the language, you have a little background about how the property taxes and tax system works, and then you'll be a little bit more informed to kind of really hear what Roberta and Tom have to say. Okay, so property tax bills. I'm going to mostly focus on the city of Detroit, but I'll mention where things apply in other municipalities. So property taxes, you're going to get one bill mailed in December, and that's due in January, and then you'll get another bill, your summer bill, that is mailed in July. Your payment is due in August, or if you pay it in two parts, you can pay it in August and January. This is what a 2025 winter tax bill looks like. Next slide. Okay, so if you look in the top right, and so if you can't see up here, I also have the printed tax bill for you. It's actually a 2024 tax bill, but if you didn't bring your own, it's in there if you want to look at it. The top right quadrant, just to kind of break down what you can expect to see on your tax bill, you'll have the tax parcel number. Some information has been blacked out to protect the innocent. Tax parcel number is just one way that the city refers to your property. It's a number. Sometimes there's letters in there. And then you'll have your school district. City of Detroit only has one school district, but if you're in a different municipality, there might be multiple school districts in your municipality, so that has a code that references that. Then your state equalized value. This is a number that the city basically determines what your property is worth to the city. If you double that number, so this one in this example is $51,500. So if you double that, that's $103,000. The city, from a taxable standpoint, believes your property is worth $103,000 if you double that number. That number can go up or down depending on how the value changes over time. And when you're assessment notice comes out, that's the number that we all want to watch for, and we'll look at an assessment notice shortly. The taxable value is kind of like your base. So once you buy your property the year after, your taxable value is where you start. And that number can only go up 5% a year or the rate of inflation, whichever is lower. This year, 2026, the rate of inflation has been determined by the state of Michigan to be 2.7%. So that number can only go up at the most this year, 2.7% from the last year. So these numbers, if you've owned your property more than 1 year, those numbers will potentially start to look a lot different because your taxable value can only go up that percentage every year, whereas your state equalized value can go up or down depending. So they could, if you've owned your property for a long time, your taxable value might be way lower than your state equalized value. Go back. Then we have PRE. This one says 0. That means it's non-owner occupied. If it's at 100, that means it is your primary residence. So you always want to look at that, make sure that's accurate. If it is your primary residence, it should say 100. If you live in like a duplex or a quadruplex, it might say 50% or 25% because you can only occupy a multifamily home personally in the proportion of 1 unit. So you always want to make sure that's accurate. And then I think the other categories don't really matter. The lender, if your lender is paying your taxes for you, it will have the lender's name, and that just says that they're paying it for you. So if you're expecting them to pay it for you and there's nothing there, you might want to check with them, make sure they have your tax bills. And then under that, partial property description, that is the legal description, and that's just another way to refer to your property outside of your common address. Okay, now I'm ready for the next slide. Okay, I'm not necessarily going to take questions because I want to make sure the guests have plenty of time for questions, but I'm happy to answer some at the end. Just kind of breezing through this right now, but if I'm going too fast and you're just like, wait, stop, slow down, please yell that out to me. Okay, then the left side of your tax bill, this has all, like basically this determines what you're going to pay for your property taxes. So the City of Detroit millage rate for 2025 was, I believe, 65.2 or thereabouts. Part of that gets allocated to the summer bill, and part of that gets allocated to the winter bill. The winter bill is about 9, so the summer bill would be like 42. Okay, don't let me do public math. Okay. So all of these line items, the winter bills in Detroit go to the county and the summer bills go to the city, but it just basically says what you're paying for. It's going to Wayne County jails, Wayne County parks, more of a parks, special education, community college. So every number on here is going to add up to your total millage rate. So that's like all your taxes are going to a specific line item on your bill that adds up to your total tax bill. And so then underneath that, it just shows the calculation of your total taxes. This one has the summer balance. The half of the summer is being paid in the winter, so it just kind of shows all of the accounting on there. To calculate your taxes, it's the taxable value times the millage rate divided by 1,000, and then that will get you your tax bill. And I think we have that formula again on the next slide. Yes. Okay. So this kind of shows both sides of the tax bill.
Can you say that formula again?
Yes. So if you want to determine what your current taxes are going to be, you take your taxable value times the millage rate divided by 1,000, and that will give you your taxes for the entire year. Now you might have to add in Detroit, you have to add your trash fee. Now, if you want to know what your taxes would be, like if you're buying a property, you would want to look at this, multiply the millage rate by the state equalized value divided by 1,000, and that will get you potentially what your future taxes would be. So depending on if you are the current owner or you're checking out a property that you would like to buy, depends on which you need to multiply it by. And again, you will have all of these slides. Okay, let's review the assessment notice. Everybody get one of these in the mail. And I know some of you brought your own, and this is fueling a lot of anger and confusion and things like that. So we'll break down how to read this. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are mailed in January, at least in the city of Detroit they are. And then you have a couple opportunities to appeal, which we will talk about. The city of Detroit has a special, it's called an assessor review. No other municipality I am aware of offers that, where you have like sort of a preliminary opportunity to appeal your assessment. And then you have the Board of Review. In Detroit, the deadline is March 9th to appeal for that. And that's a secondary opportunity. And then if you still aren't happy with the outcome, then you can appeal to the Michigan Tax Tribunal.
So just to be clear, if you get the result you need at the assessor review, you don't need to
You do
file.
not need to go any further. They will send you something in writing to basically say we've updated your.
And you get that, I know I'm typing, but you'll get that response prior to the March 9th deadline for the board. of review.
Maybe. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. We'll talk about my experience with how that went last year. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here's your assessment notice. The state of Michigan, they all look the same. They might not all be yellow, but they all have the same format. This is like a state form. So top right quadrant, you have the parcel number, which is again like just a numerical number that the city uses to refer to your property. Then you have your property address, which would be more of like your mailing address. Below that, it's going to say if you have a principal residence exemption, that could be anything from 0 to 100. And then we won't worry about qualified agricultural properties or commercial properties or anything like that. Then below that, we have the legal description, this amount that's blacked out right here. Below that, we have the property type. This one I pulled says commercial vacant. Yours would probably say residential. Sometimes people who have the NEZ abatement, it will say NEZ on there, sometimes not. So you always want to make sure all of that looks accurate. And then the bottom, this is like the real meat and potatoes of this form. So it has your values for the previous tax year, 2025, the values for your current tax year, and then the changes between them. It will also tell you if there was a transfer of ownership in the property. If there was not, then your taxable value, as we discussed, can only go up that 2.7%. If there was a change, then you're going to, that you bought the property last year, you will see the uncapping, which we will talk about. And then it has on the bottom your true cash value or market value, which is what the city basically believes your property is worth. So this one says 75,800, and so half of that is your state equalized value. So in this particular example, since this property did not change value, did not change ownership in 2025, the taxable value went from $16,786 to $17,239. That is 2.7%. You can do the math. That's what it is. The assessed value or the state equalized value went from $34,500 to $37,900, and that was a change because of the value of the property increased. And then it will tell you what the change between them was, and then it will even tell you how your taxes will be affected. In this case, this bill is going up $37. Okay, I wanted to just show you what happens when a property uncaps. I think, do I have this printed out as well? Is this in the printout? Yeah, okay, so you have this in a printout. I just want to show you how uncapping, this is kind of an older example. This shows between 2021 and 2022, but it would look the exact same if it was current year. So what you have, you see at the bottom, there was a change in ownership. So in 2021, around June, the property was sold for $200,000. In 2021, the taxable value was about $54,000. And the state equalized value was $83,000. So if I was going to continue to own the property, I would, that $53,000, $54,000 would just increase by that percentage, whatever it was for the year 2022. And if I was trying to figure out what my taxes might be, I would run that formula for the $83,000. Like if I knew I was buying the property, I saw that in 2021, the state equalized value was $83,000. I would calculate my taxes based on that. Now what happened, when you sell the property, the value uncaps, meaning that the taxable value increases to become the state equalized value. But the city also reassessed the property that year as well. So the state taxable value did not just go up to be the state equalized value, it actually went up to the new assessed amount. So it went up higher than you could have even calculated. This is a problem, especially in the city of Detroit, okay? Because there's like, you try your best, you calculate your taxes based on what they're assessed for that year, and then they have the potential to go up even higher. So in this case, now the property's state equalized value is $119,000. That's about a $240,000 value. It sold for $200,000. So it actually got assessed for higher than it sold for. And so this person probably has a pretty good case for an appeal because it's now valued at higher than the property sold for. Here's another example. Same thing here. As you can see, this property was continuously owned until it was sold in 2021. The sale in 2021 was $207,000. So it just went up that small percentage every year until, so the taxable value only went up a percentage every year, but you can see the state equalized value went from $45,000 to $54,000 to $70,000 to $85,000 the year that it was sold. Then it not only uncapped, but it was reassessed again at $105,000. Now this one sold at $207,000, and the city believes it's worth about $208,000. So that one, I don't think you probably could appeal that one because you're being taxed basically at what you bought it for. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I'm just going to run through how to appeal. So this is what you will find online if you go look at it. There's the, let's go to the next slide. Oh, okay. We're going to talk about appeals in a second. I'm just going to run, I think they got out of order. Okay, so the neighborhood enterprise zone, we're just going to talk quickly about that. Next slide, please. Here's the map. The state law says the city can only include a certain percentage of the entire map to qualify for neighborhood enterprise zone, which is a tax abatement. So it's been very strategic. The map was redone in 2020 strategically to try to include the areas that would make the most impact. It's usually areas that have the highest taxes, the most expensive houses to maintain, usually historic districts and things like that. So you qualify if you have a property that is in one of these areas. Next slide. And it is your primary residence. And you didn't buy it before 1992. So as long as you bought it after 1992, it's your primary residence, and it's on the map, then you have the ability to qualify for NEZ, and there's an application process that you have to go through. But basically what it does at the end of the day, it splits your property tax bill in two parts. So one bill is allocated to the land value, and the other bill is allocated to the value of the improvements, whether you have a condo, a single family home, a duplex, something like that. The land bill is taxed normally, normal millage rate. And the improvements bill, the millage rate goes down to about 56. So it equals about 15 to 20% total reduction on your tax bill. So if anybody has a primary residence in the city of Detroit and is in this zone and you need help qualifying or you need help applying, just let me know. I'm happy to walk you through the process. I have it on my own property. So supposedly it goes for 15 years. I've also heard they're allowing people to extend beyond that, depending. So next slide. And just one thing to think about, once your tax bill gets split, one bill is going to, if your lender, your mortgage company is paying your taxes, they're only going to know about the one original bill. They're not going to get the second one. So that first year you get that second tax bill, you just need to make sure that your lender knows so that they can pay both of them. Otherwise, you're going to get one paid, the cheapest one, the land bill, and the other bill is going to go unpaid, and you get late fees and all of that. So that is like something to watch. Make sure they have it. Make sure they pay it that first time. And then you shouldn't have to worry about after that. Okay, now we're going to talk about what I learned for the appeal process. And I have somebody here that could also talk about her experience a little bit. Okay, next slide. Okay. Oh, and that's the NEZ. Okay, these are out of order. Let's just go to the next one. Okay, so the assessor review. It opened on February 1st. It ends February 22nd. This is Detroit only. You can submit it online or by mail. If you submit it by mail, it has to be postmarked by the 22nd. Otherwise, you can submit it online. It's super easy. There's like an online form that you fill out. You can upload information like property sales data, photos of your property, things like that. You want to make sure you submit all your properties at once. So if you have multiple properties to appeal, don't do one and then hope that they're going to talk to you about the other ones. Like make sure you submit all of them. There's an opportunity. It's just one application, but there's an opportunity to add multiple properties to it. So just make sure you do it all at the same time. So in my experience last year, the closer you submit to the 22nd, to that end date, the less likely that you are going to get a response in time for you to apply to the assessor review. So I don't know how it's going to be running this year. Like maybe they have it more together, but I had some clients who appealed, submitted, and they didn't get an answer, and they were just like, oh shoot, we're not going to lose our opportunity to apply to the Board of Review. So the answers came out late, and the city actually allowed more time to the Board of Review because of that. But I wouldn't take that chance. Like I wouldn't wait for the assessor to respond and potentially miss the next deadline. Okay, next slide, please. So if you don't get a response from the assessor review or you don't get the response that you want, then the next step would be the Board of Review. And this one is mandatory. So the deadline to apply is March 9th at 4:30. So after 4:30, the website will be shut down. Like you do not have an opportunity to do it after 4:30. You can schedule an appointment for your appeal anytime between March 3rd and April 6th. So you apply, and then you basically like pick the time that you want to appeal. You can apply online, you can apply in person, you can apply by mail. I recommend doing it online. It's easiest. You'll get an email verification response that you did submit your application, so you don't have to worry. I feel like if you submit your application by mail, like you don't know that they got it. And if you do it in person, like they have a Dropbox that I also would not trust. Like what if they said that they didn't get it? So I would absolutely recommend doing it online. And then once you get your appeal date, this is like an actual hearing. And you can do it Zoom or in person. There's a couple different locations around the city to go in person. But I would say most people go by Zoom. Like if you can go online and you can click the Zoom link and you can watch all of the appeals happen. So if you want to like see what it's going to be like before your appeal, like you can watch the whole process. You can watch the people either on Zoom or coming in person. Usually the room is like completely empty. It's just like people online. But every once in a while, somebody will come in person, and you can hear how the Board of Review responds. You can watch the people and the certain arguments they make and things like that, which is really helpful, especially if you're just like, you don't know what to expect. You can watch other people do it before you do. The hearings are recorded, so I would take notes like during your hearing on what they say, as far as like your evaluation and what they're willing to do for you, but they are recorded. So if you get something in the mail after the hearing that says something different than you remember, then you can ask them to go back and review the video. Like they just need to know when was your hearing, what time, what day, and they will go back and review it and make sure the information that they have and you have is accurate. You can bring supporting evidence, present it, such as market data, photos of your property, things like that, anything you'd like to present to plead your case. They can be really tough, you know. In my experience, they're they're trying to hold on to their money. So, and what's interesting is the assessor's data that they use to value your property for 2026 was sales that happened in the beginning of 2023 to the beginning of 2025. So there's sort of like a gap after the beginning of 2025 till the present of sales that could have happened that support your value more, that they don't even want to know about or hear about. They're like, we're not using that data. So if you're in a situation where the market is starting to decline and maybe some sales have gone down, they're like, too bad, that's not the data we're using. So that's been my experience. A decision letter will follow. Make sure to review it for accuracy. I've even had some clients that had appointments, and you show up to the hearing, and they're like, we don't have a record of your appointment. That's happened a couple times. That's fine. There's a process. Like, you have proof. You registered online. You have an email saying your appointment was at this time, so they will give you your hearing, but they don't always make it easy for you. So, 5.
They don't make anything easy.
Okay.
You are right about that. They are very tough. They're trying to hold on to their money. We went to the Board of Review, and Jan sat with me when I went for my hearing. They reduced my taxes by a very small amount, and then they said they would send me the information. Well, guess what? They sent me the information and said I was denied after they had granted it. So then, in order to get the information, it's not as easy as just give them the date, and I had to file a Freedom of Information form in order to get the data that said that it was reduced. Now, 2 things. When they went back and looked at it and listened to the thing, they said they listened to it. I'm just making up numbers. They said it was reduced by $1,000. It was reduced by $1,500. So you have to write everything down. You have to document. You have to keep documenting, because these people, they don't care. It's not their land, you know. It's not their taxes. So, and it is an arduous, this is not for the faint of heart. If you don't want to really stand up and do this and spend the time, you're not going to get your taxes reduced. So then they made a big mistake about the Board of Review session. So then I had to call the assessor's office and say, hey, what's going on here? This is ridiculous. And I had, you know, Jan helped me get that stuff together. I called directly down, had a couple of meetings on the phone, one meeting with the assessor himself, and he tells me in the meeting, we've only been on the phone for 7 minutes, and he says, I'm not running a valuation 101 class. And I said, whoa, excuse me, what? I said, no. You are the assessor. None of your people can tell me how my taxes were assessed. So someone's going to tell me, and I think it's going to be you. And he's like, well, I'm not. I said, no. You need to calm down. I'm just trying to tell you what he's like. So if you come up against him. He's a nice guy. Don't get me wrong. He's a very nice man, but he gets very defensive. He explained afterwards that they are not allowed to say anything except he started reading. Now, he's had this job for 12 years. He started reading that your evaluation is, I said, whoa, why are you reading that? Why can't you just explain this to me? And then afterwards he told me, because I was like, this is ridiculous. I can read it. So just to let you know, you're up against a lot. And if you're not willing to keep battling, you're not going to get it reduced. I did finally get mine reduced quite a bit. My property is along the river, and they say my property is valued over $500,000.
And there's been no sales in her building above $250,000 in the last couple years.
Right. So $550,000 is what they're saying it's worth. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Took all the information, and in fact, Jan and I went through the information that she just told you they do 2 years back, And all of that information was incorrect. They had double properties in there, they had properties that weren't valued correctly. So all I'm saying to you is that you gotta do a lot of homework. It's not, don't take anything for face value, take notes, and be aware of what they've told you and what you need to do.
Thank you. All right, next slide. Okay, Michigan Tax Tribunal, if you don't get relief at the first two opportunities, that deadline is July 31st. You can apply online or by mail. The assessor, the city assessor, has to respond to your complaint. And the Michigan Tax Tribunal tries to get you to settle with the assessor, like wants you two to work it out directly. But if you can't, then you will get a hearing. And then you'll be talking with, you'll be doing, you know, Tom's not the judge anymore, but he sat through many of these and he can talk to you about his experiences with that. Next slide. Okay, just a couple things about things that have come up in the news lately about property taxes. Next slide. Did you all hear about this? Everybody heard about this, right? Detroit couple, they moved from Florida to Detroit, bought a home. They're like, we're going to relocate. We're going to change our lives. We want to be Detroiters. They bought a property. I'm a sleuth, so I found the house that they bought. I looked it up. I was like, I want to know what happened. So basically what happened, this is what happened. The previous owner had owned it for a long time as like a rental property. It was a duplex in Midtown. They bought it for $465,000, okay? They bought it in 2024. So as you can see, the taxable value was only going up that small percentage every year because it only can go up the rate of inflation every year. Whereas the state equalized value was going up quite went. It was $110,000, then it was $200,000, then it was $180,000. So the year that they bought the house, the state equalized value was $217,000. That was a number that was out there that they should have known. Their realtor should have known. Somebody should have told them that their taxes were going to go up that year. Now that calculation was about $14,000. So they would have known at least that their taxes were going to go up $14,000 from $3,500 that year. So that's the real shame here, that they totally were caught by surprise. Now the city then, and so that's $217,000 is about $440,000, okay? They bought it for $465,000, so that was in line with what their property was worth. But the city, when it uncapped, it also got reassessed again to $262,000, which is like $520,000. They bought it for $465,000. They're getting assessed at $520,000. So now they have a case for appeal. That's how it went from basically the $3,500 to the $20,000. Now they also should have applied for their homestead, which I don't think that they did. Applied for the NEZ homestead, that would have brought it down. I think they probably should be at about $17,000 ideally. Still way too high, but if they can, and then whatever they can get it reduced to, but that is what actually happened. So it got overassessed, but they also did have an opportunity to find out that it was going to have a huge jump after they bought it. Somebody failed them.
That's what I mentioned when I was up there. Who you work with matters. Not all realtors, lenders, title companies are created the same, and who you work with matters because a lot of people don't tell the people what the tax bill is going to be. They just base everything on what it was, and then they get hit with this.
Your lender too. Your lender is only required to escrow your taxes based on what they currently are. So if you're not prepared for that or you don't make plans for that, the next year once your tax bills comes out, your lender's like, oh, we're not collecting enough. You owe us $15,000. So if you already knew it was going to go up, then you could have at least put that money aside, started saving it every month to go towards your increased tax bill. So people are just kind of caught by surprise here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So from the 217, what they paid for was like you said?
465.
465. It jumped up to 261, but they're not allowed to go up by 2.7%. Is that correct?
Well, so next year, this number, assuming they don't get it reduced because of an appeal, now it can only go up 2.7%.
Okay.
So the only year it's going to jump is the year after your purchase.
What was the half of the sale price again?
What's 465 divided by 2? 2,
30 something.
yeah.
32 and a half.
So,
So they were still assessed higher than a
Yes.
sale price.
Our assessment came in 80% higher than our what we bought the house for. And it's because there's bigger houses on our
1,000. It's actually 1,000. It's actually coming out to 22,000, but
What is the 85.2?
that's the non-owner occupied millage rate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. For 2025. So it should actually be a little bit higher than that, but. Okay, next slide. This is my last one, and then we'll bring up Roberta. Okay. Last Friday, not this past Friday, but the Friday before, the 30th, Mayor Sheffield's first executive order that she signed for her mayoral term was to basically direct the City of Detroit assessor to get himself together. To use an assessment procedure process that aligns more with national standards instead of whatever Wild West we're dealing with in Detroit. So I did a little bit of research about this. I'm going to do a YouTube video about like explaining it in more detail once I have a better handle on it. But I think that hopefully is going to improve our assessment process to just make it more fair so that people aren't getting, assessed double what they should and like just crazy numbers and things like that. So keep an eye out for that.
That 2.7% that they mentioned, the homeowner's protected by, like, just the taxable value being increased by inflation already, right? So it's not really to her credit. You know how they said she proposed a 2.7% cap?
Yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with, that to me, that wasn't news. She was saying like that's going to protect you, which is true. But the real news here, I think, is that she wants to get the assessment process more in line. Yeah. There were a couple things in this press release also that everybody's, values went up, which is why their taxes are going up. Okay, and then I think we are on to the next slide. Oh, okay. So if you want to interact with me, you can text Tax Nerd to this number, and I will just remind you when your taxes are due and when your NEZ homestead is due, and like little reminders. I also have a ton of content about my YouTube, about taxes on my YouTube series, talking about all kinds of stuff, going through, how to read your tax bill, how the tax system works, how to calculate your taxes, all types of things like that. Next slide. If you want help with your property tax appeal, you can sign up for a 10-minute consultation with me. I'll help just get you data and look at it and just help hold your hand a little bit. Next slide. And if you got value out of this, I would love if you left me a Google review. Just tell me how wonderful I am and how much you appreciate me. I love giving back to the community, so if you want to share your thoughts about me, I would love for you to leave me a Google review. Next slide. Okay, now we'll bring up Roberta. Yes? You will get all the slides. If you RSVP'd and we have your email, if you did not RSVP, make sure you get us your email, and we will get you everything.
I just want to verify that if you are over assessed.
Yeah.
And like you do the purchase.
Yeah.
That appeal period has passed. How do you recapture, or is there a process for you to recapture what you were over assessed?
Okay, so you can't if you missed your appeal last year, there's no opportunity to retroactive. You only have this year going forward. So as long as you get your appeal in by the assessor appeal by February 22nd, we still have plenty of time for that, or the Board of Review March 9th, we have a month to get that together. So you can potentially affect your taxes this year and going forward. But
So that couple that you shared, they're going to be stuck with that one bill.
for this year,
Correct.
at least for 2025, they just got their assessment notice for 2026, so they do have the opportunity to try to get it fixed for 2026 taxes going forward. Yes.
Okay, so just to clarify that, we saw our reassessment because of our purchase, our uncapped reassessment, whatever happened on the summer bill.
Yeah.
So that, anything we paid for the last 6 months, we can't, but we can still,
Yeah, so if
Still going
you are successful with an appeal
Okay.
during the next, month period, or even if you have to go to the tax tribunal, you could fix your taxes for 2026. That bill comes
Yeah.
out in August, July and August, so you could potentially fix it for that. Now, if you go to the Michigan Tax Tribunal, your tax bill's already out by that point. So, but if you get relief at the tribunal, they will retroactively fix your 2026
Understood.
summer tax
Because we
bill.
filed.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
One last question real quick. Have you ever had it where they increase the taxes because now they see the house is nicer than they, like let's say you buy a house in Detroit, rental property, 50,000, you do some rehab on it, right?
Uh-huh.
And you go there and they're like, well, it's nicer than what we thought it would be, so they increase the taxable value. Let's say they don't even fight with you, but now they have the information on hand. That's what I'm always worried about, right?
Yeah, I have not seen that be the case with the city. I have seen it happen at the tax tribunal, where somebody just had no basis for appeal and they kind of got the book thrown at them. So they just increased it to what they bought it for, basically. All right, Roberta. Roberta is an appraiser. I work with her a ton. She has helped a lot of my clients with their tax appeals, basically figuring out things about their property that they could use as part of their appeal. So take it away.
Thank you very much. Jan, if you don't mind, I can grab a chair.
Yeah. Oh, yes, and I need to give you the microphone. Can I put it on your collar?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay.
All right. How does that work? Everybody can hear me okay?
Oh, you
All right,
have
wonderful.
to enunciate. This is just for YouTube.
Pardon me?
The microphone is for YouTube.
Okay, got it. Okay. And do we have my bullet points up?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So, first of all, quick introduction. I am a state licensed appraiser. I began my appraisal career in 1997. I became state licensed in 1999. I did take about a 10-year hiatus between 07 and 17, shortly after the birth of my son, my third kid. So I took a break and I came back into the industry in 2017 and began appraising again in 18. So I've got another 7 years under my belt since coming back into the industry. I also am a realtor, but I predominantly appraise these days. Now, when it comes to, what do we have here? Okay. The biggest question we've heard everybody asking, and Jan already touched on many of the points here, is that everybody's screaming, oh my gosh, my taxes are so high, especially in Detroit. And a lot of that is, just as she explained, with homes values. See, after the crash, the SEVs came down eventually. It came, not right away, assessors fought it tooth and nail, right? But as the values began to plummet, people began to protest their values. So we saw dramatic decreases in your SEV, state equalized value, ever since 2008. It's only been in recent years that we've begun to see another increase, and in every area varies. From some went up further than others. For instance, I worked with I forgot to finish my credentials. I took the MCAO course in 24, which is the Michigan Certified Assessing Officers course. So I had the education of the assessor's office, and I also have my experience as a state licensed appraiser. So that being said, I went on a consult. Agent hired me to appraise a 3-unit property in downtown Detroit. I just love this story because it's all real events here. Pardon? Oh, okay. Well, the man had owned the home or the building for over 30 years, and he resided in one of the units. Now with Michigan, and we were referring to the percentages for homestead. In Michigan, they only use 0, 50, or 100. So if the person occupies one part, they might give them 50%, but they only do those specific numbers. They don't do anything in between in the state of Michigan. So, but this house, this older gentleman, he was getting ready to move south, retired in his day, and he was paying $900 a month or a year on this building, 3 units in downtown Detroit. And his SCV just 5 years ago was only literally less than $10,000. His current SCV was over $150,000. So the problem came is he wanted to sell this property, and it's a 3-unit building. So the person who's going to buy it is looking for income, right? Well, based off the rents and his the projected new tax bill for any purchaser, 1.5 out of the 3 units, it would take 1.5 units rent just to cover the property taxes. Okay, you see where we're going with this? So this gentleman who's only paying $900 a month in his property taxes, or I'm sorry, a year. I'm not a morning person, so bear with me. I'm trying here. I know, well, that's still morning for me normally. I'm a night owl. So anyway, we had to have this conversation with him because he wanted to list the property for sale, but the problem was we couldn't get the numbers to work to where the building could be profitable. Even if an owner-occupant purchased it and lived in one of the units, you would still need over 1 month's rent. The rent for 1 unit wouldn't even cover the taxes, not to mention the homeowner's insurance, right? So this becomes a really big impact on the overall marketability and value of these homes. So yes, the government does need to address it because these numbers are not sustainable for most of the residents. That 1% maybe can handle these types of numbers, right? So that being said, how come my house came up? Well, as Jan already touched on, the taxable value basically becomes the SEV, also what known as the capped value. So like in that case, that 3 unit, it would go from being taxed at a value of around $10,000 a year to a value of over $150,000 a year. So yeah, that's a huge increase in property taxes. And not so much so that it made the building unprofitable. So what do you do with it then? This is a huge impact on marketability and value. Okay, so any questions on that? Okay, because I know Jan already really touched on a lot of this, so thank you. All right, assessor review. What do you need to know? How can you, or can I appeal? How? And local municipality board of review and state tribunal. Again, Jan touched on a lot of this. I would say the number one best thing you can have in your arsenal if you plan on fighting your property taxes is an appraisal. There's two reasons that most people will appeal. One is an error on your property card, meaning they have inaccurate, let's say like you had a 2-car garage that just fell apart, right? So you had it demoed, but you might still be taxed on that 2-car garage. It might still be on your record, and yes, I've seen this a lot, where there's old garages predominantly that have been long gone, but they're still being taxed on the value of having that garage. So an erroneous error is number one reason to protest or appeal your property taxes. Yes?
If you see that error has been made, could you go back the previous year and dispute it, or once that year is over, you can't dispute it?
You can give it a shot. I know that, like, for instance, when people don't file their homestead documentation, right, with the city, and they do so later on, most cities will give you a refund, but only up to 2 years. So let's say you've been paying non-homestead taxes for 10 years, but you've been living there, they will only give you back 2 years worth. So I'm sure if there is something along those lines, it's probably a capped just like it is in regards to the homestead exemption. So that can be a big deal. But yes, we want inaccuracies, that's the easiest one to fight. I helped someone last year in Royal Oak. I do free consultations, by the way. If you reach out, give me your address. I've been doing this long enough, 5 minutes, I can have a ballpark idea, most of the time, unless it's a unique or uncharacteristic property. But I helped him because he wanted to fight his property taxes, but I was like, his SEV was actually less than 50% of what it was worth. I was like, dude, you don't want an appraisal. I says, but we can measure and see if the square footage is accurate. And sure enough, I did the measure, and he actually had a lot less square footage than he thought he had. And that does not happen often. Typically, in my experience, the assessing records typically have less square footage than what you have. And I know which cities are really bad at that, but I'm not going to say anything because we're on YouTube Live. I don't want to get myself in trouble here. So that being said, some cities are better than others. But just to give you a quick idea, touch on for a measure, I only charge $150 to come out, measure it, and then I give you, it's the same form you see in a mortgage appraisal. It's literally right out of the appraisal report, okay, is the format to verify square footage. And then for a full appraisal, for standard single family home in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb is typically $495. However, that cost goes up depending on complexity. And I do go further out than Macomb, Oakland, Wayne, Macomb, but I just charge more it's road time. So we go there. But yeah, as we said, errors, number one. If errors is the easiest way to appeal your property taxes, if you can find an error on the record. And with Detroit, there's a website called BS&A, and that is where all their property records are. I was reading in the attorney's package about, he was referring to the old record cards. I remember the old actual record cards. Yeah, I'm dating myself here. We used to, when I first started appraising, we used film cameras, and we used to have to go to the assessing office to pull the data card, right? Because the MLS was it wasn't online yet. We used to get books every Friday. Every office got books, the MLS books. It was, by today's standards, it's so archaic. But it was different back then. But the property cards now are typically all online. They don't actually keep physical record cards anymore. I'm sure maybe somebody does, but I've yet to see it. Everything else is pretty much online. So errors, number two is the value. I just assisted a gentleman in Grosse Pointe Farms who just bought a house, and his assessment, I'm gonna make some fake numbers here so it's not identifiable. Let's just say the city was saying his house was worth $3 million. He was in a very, very nice, posh area of Grosse Pointe Farms. And they were saying $3,000. He's like, I paid $1.5 for it. And I'm doing a remodel right now for several $100,000. He says, even with all of that, it's not worth $3 million. And again, we had a long consultation. He sent me all kinds of data. I looked it up, and I'm like, you absolutely have a case. And to give you an idea, I've already completed this appraisal and have submitted it because he did this ahead of time because he already knew it was going to be a problem because last year's was higher than his value. So I ended up coming in $1 million less than the city assessor's office on that value. Go ahead.
And obviously, assessing on a city level isn't an exact science.
It's mass appraisal methods is what they use. That's the only. It's very different. What I do is an individual property. I always say first I learn my subject, then once I know my subject, then I can go and choose my comparables.
Right.
And with experience and market knowledge, I know when to go stay in that exact neighborhood, and I also know when to jump neighborhoods because sometimes you have to. If you're in a certain neighborhood that's, let's say it's $150,000-ish neighborhood,
Yeah.
and I have to jump into another one, I will do that if I have to.
So we're in a unique situation, but we're in the crappiest house in the nicest street, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know
Best
what I mean?
investment though.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
But we had
Thank you.
two different sales going through the same year on our street for about 3 or 4 times what we paid for our house. Mm-hmm. And we got a ridiculous valuation on our house.
Right. Well, that's actually an excellent example of when I said I would jump neighborhoods.
Right.
There's a line we use. I like to use the city of Warren as a good example. They have 6 school districts, and the city of Warren is huge, right? It's one of the largest. It covers a lot of geographical space, right? And so if I have, say, one of those neighborhoods where the homes are all built in the 60s, but there's a handful of them that are all remodeled. The rest of them are original owners. They still have the pink tile. They still have the original kitchen. You get what I'm saying, right? Yeah. You can have the exact same size house, the exact same design, and one can sell for $150,000 more than the other because of those improvements, right? So, and it's not uncommon to have to go to another neighborhood. Say if yours is just a little 4-block neighborhood and then there's some main roads. That's what I mean by jumping neighborhoods. If I can't find another house that, quite frankly, is the shittiest home on the block, then I'm going to go to another neighborhood nearby within the same school district with all the same characteristics, right, to find a more comparable property. Because what we're looking for is most comparable. And we want to look at the elements that are contributing most to value, which is typically location, your surroundings, school district, the home itself, and the improvements. So there is a time. You don't have to stick directly to your neighborhood. That's a big urban myth. We typically go up to a mile, but there have been times I went over a mile, even in cities, to find something that's exactly comparable. But again, it has to be a competing nearby neighborhood, meaning that if a buyer was going to look in your neighborhood, they'd also be looking in that neighborhood that I'm choosing to pull comparables from, right? They're going to be seeing both houses. So that's how we would handle that. But like I said, in the case of this Grosse Pointe Farms house, it would reduce his taxable value by over $500,000 would be the reduction. In Grosse Pointe Farms, you can imagine how much of a difference that is. And I was very shocked to see that they had things so grossly overassessed. Another urban myth I'd like to address really quick is that a lot of people think that when they sell their house or there has been a sale on the house, that the SEV will automatically become half of the sales price. That's actually illegal in Michigan. There's a statute that says specifically they cannot regard the sales price. They have to apply the same calculation methods that they do to all the other properties that have not sold. So they are not allowed to turn that SEV into half of the sale price, because that's a very common myth. A lot of people believe, and actually I suspect it may have been done. I know they used to do it before the crash. I saw that a lot in Macomb Township in particular. I saw a lot of it in Macomb Township, where all of a sudden the SEV became exactly the sale price. But I'm not sure if the current statute was in place back then, but I know it is now. So they
So you're
cannot
saying
do
it should
that.
be less than that?
Then,
You're saying it should be less than half the sales price?
no, I'm not, it's not a matter of should or
Just
anything.
it
They
should
can't
not
use, they can't
use
use
the
the
big
exact
one.
sale price, right? Let's say the house sold, for example, 200,000. They can't manually make your SEV 100,000. Do you get what I'm
It
saying?
can't be the only
That's what
data.
they do.
Pardon?
That's what they do.
Well, it's illegal. There's actually a statute in regards to that states that they are not, they are by law, they have to, city assessors apply the same mathematical and calculated approach that they do all the other homes. They can't just cherry pick and say these homes sold, so we're going to bump up the SEV. That's illegal. So they're not allowed to do that. Go ahead, sir.
What is the method? Do they use like a square footage times a square footage?
Oh, let me tell you, when I took the course, it was about 20 hours of class time, about another 30 hours of reading and homework just to go over all of that. Yet when they're using a mass appraisal method, they're breaking down the elements of the property and giving each one value. They give them different ratings to calculate things. Some factors are provided by the state. Others they create from their sales study from the prior year, as Jan had mentioned. That's where they come up with their figures. And as she was saying, the taxable value, not the cap can go, or I'm sorry, SEV can go anywhere. Your taxable value is capped at either 5% per annum or the consumer price index rate of inflation is those limits. And it's whichever one is less, not which one is larger on that. So, okay, where we go from here? Oh, yeah. If you think your values are way off, get an appraisal. There's nothing better than to go in and fight your property value than to say, here's a licensed certified appraiser's report, giving me specific explanation, 35 pages of rationale and understanding and a breakdown of the whole process on how to get to the price. And as I said, with consultations, if you really think, if it's only a few thousand off, like that example you gave where it was only 7,000 off, don't bother. You're not going to win. It's just the same thing when I look at bad appraisals, because I also review appraisals and help people with rebuttals when they have a bad appraisal. Sometimes I look at the report and I'm like, well, okay, they were being a bit of a jerk that day. They could have brought this in at 10,000 higher, but for whatever reason they didn't. But it's not enough to give you a leg to stand on. It's not enough to make an argument. You have to have a valid argument for them to hear it. And there is no better value argument than a full appraisal, having that done. And as I said, I start at $495 for a single family, and it goes up from there depending on complexity or if it's a duplex and so on and so forth, just to give you that idea. Go ahead, sir.
Quick question about the appraisal. So let's say if you bought the house last year and you got the appraisal with the process, can you use that appraisal?
If it was from your mortgage company, no, you cannot, because it's specifically lenders and AMCs put right in the orders that the appraiser receives, and it's in the report that report is solely for the sole purpose of lending purposes only. You are not allowed to use that in any way to fight your property taxes. You have to have a separate appraisal done, but maybe if you call the appraiser you did the first time, they might give you a discount. You know, that's the best I can do for you with that, because you have to have every time I write an appraisal, I have to have an intended user, and I have to be very specific on that intended user. Like this past week, I've been working on several divorce appraisals. So I have to put in there, list off the occupants, the attorneys that are involved, who is allowed to use this report and who is not. And with lenders, they always make sure we have a big clause about how this is for lending purposes only and is not to be used in any other manner. Go ahead.
So that's great. So if I get an independent appraisal through you,
Yeah.
I don't have to share this with my mortgage company.
Oh, absolutely not. No. And that's another thing. Private appraisals, when you do something like this, when you hire me directly or another appraiser, It's private, it's confidential. We are not allowed to give that information to anybody else unless you specifically authorize it. I've had people who've had appraisals and they're like, and the value comes in high and maybe it's much higher than what the SEV, right? They're like, I don't want anybody finding out about this, right? I get that a lot. And no, they don't know. It's not public record. A private appraisal is just that, it's a private appraisal. So nobody sees any of the information unless you want them to. So, question, go ahead.
If you live in a community, like, say, just a certain subdivision, if your property is assessed higher than the other communities in that sub, can you use that?
No, that's absolutely useless. Sorry. I wish I could tell you better, but it's useless. You have to have a valid argument to prove. Like we said, number one is errors. Number two is value. And it needs to be substantial, more than just a couple thousand. I hate to say it, but that's just not worth your time, especially if you're paying $500 plus for an appraisal report. You want to be able to believe at least, or have good reason to believe that you'll recoup that money in your lower property taxes, right? And another thing to consider too is for resale. A lot of people, as Jan had explained, once you purchase a property and it's reassessed, you are then capped, and it can only go up to 5% annually, or rate of inflation, or 5%, whichever is less. So if you're planning on selling in 5-10 years, fighting sometimes if the value, maybe your tax difference isn't that much, but you're like, I'm thinking of selling on down the road. I want to get my SEV as low as possible so it's more appealing to a potential buyer on down the road. So the sooner you lock in the lowest number possible, and then you're restricted to that less than 5% annum, you could see where this benefits you in the long run. So it's just something to consider, because it does become a blemish on a property if, like we were talking about those examples. Go ahead, Jan.
So what I've seen in Detroit is that the condition of the property that
Yes.
the assessor has on record is
Yes.
different. Can you talk about the different condition grades, and like how you would know like how to appeal based on like, you know, property, like I have some clients that just bought a property for $50,000 and it was like collapsing. They had to like
Right.
rebuild
Get
the
it.
structure,
Yep.
but the city just assessed them at like $300,000.
Yep. Yes.
So how do you-
That's where the city uses, we have what we call condition codes in appraising with the standard UAD form, which is our standard mortgage appraisal form. We have C1 through C6 condition rankings. Basically, C6 is it needs to be bulldozed. C5, it's pretty darn close to getting bulldozed. C4 needs some serious work, probably as much as the house property is worth is the amount of money that it needs work for. C3 is your typical average home with wear and tear, normal use, and so on and so forth. You know, you have some areas where the carpet might be worn through, some painting needs to be done. But overall, the home is fine, it's livable, it just needs a little TLC, or you have kids or dogs. If you have kids or dogs, you can know they can wreck your house very quickly. But like C2 would be a house that's, say, a 100-year-old Victorian here in Detroit, and somebody went and remodeled everything. You know, they redid everything on the interior of this house to the point where, and I've had this happen before, where the condition is actually better than new construction. And personally, I've owned 3 Victorians, rehab-free Victorians in my day. And on the last one I sold, I couldn't do the appraisal, obviously, because it was my house. And the appraiser came out, and he compared my 150-year-old farmhouse that I'd spent over 3 years redoing with all salvage, vintage materials. I searched all over, and I put them all in this house. And he actually compared me to brand new construction nearby, and said mine was superior because of all the quality updates that I had done to the property. And a lot, you know, the new construction was for what I would call Home Depot special new construction. You know, your basic builder grade, everything, right? And so, yeah, condition can have a huge impact. I'm not sure on the city's codes, what theirs are specifically and nor what they mean, but that is something I could look into and research and double check on. But document the condition of your property, especially in the case like you're mentioning. Yes?
Is the appraisal similar, or is it supplemental to like a cost segregation study, or are they totally different?
Totally different. Totally different. The appraisal is a report that identifies just your house. It addresses the immediate market. It addresses the neighborhood conditions and standards. It also addresses the neighborhood's conformity or lack of conformity. Like those neighborhoods where you have like the same 3 houses where in the whole sub, like the builder just built all, 3 different floor plans, that would be more conforming. And then you get into areas, especially along the water, where you can have a road where you have a 600 square foot shack, 3,500 square foot McMansion, right? and so on. And then next to it, you have a container house that somebody custom built, right? So that would be a non-conforming neighborhood. It doesn't mean that, it just states that there's an inconsistency in the style, design, effective age, and functional utility of that neighborhood. Go ahead.
You said finding errors in their report would be the easiest way to
Yes.
challenge it.
Yes.
Where do you see the details to
BSNA website.
BSNA?
Yeah, yes, BSNA. Matter of fact,
You can request a record card from the city as well.
oh, you can, yeah,
I
okay.
believe,
The record card is the peer, is the,
It's
yeah,
the same.
it's the same,
Okay.
it's the same exact thing. Yeah, I've heard people use that too. They're 2 separate things. The property card is what they used to, because they literally used to be just like a card catalog in a library. That's what the assessing office used to be. They were basically like half a page, half a letter size page, and they had codes they put in for everything. And there's a sketch was done in a little 2-inch by 2-inch box, right in the bottom corner. But as things progress with internet and with computer capabilities, it's been all moved over to digital. Some areas are very difficult, though, to get your records. You may actually have to go to the assessing office because they don't post them online. A few of them in particular that I can mention right off the top of my head, Berkeley, Ferndale, trying to think who else does. Taylor, that you have to go there too. Yeah, there's a handful, but I know like whenever, I often get requests for measures in Ferndale and Berkeley because you can't even see the sketch online. They don't give you anything online. And if they go through the county for their assessing, which some of these smaller towns and communities do, where they have the Oakland County, I forget what's the name of it. Anyway, they have them do it when they're small areas, like Village of Clarkston. Village of Clarkston everything goes through the county instead of their individual township. And I know that because I've tried to track down sketches and data from them, and you just can't get it. So some areas are more forthcoming than others. Detroit's records are inconsistent, is what I would say. They have been getting much better. I can give them this much credit. Just 7 years ago, I would never have relied on anything I saw on public records with Detroit houses. I mean, I personally bought an 1,800 square foot bungalow that they said was 900 square feet. Yeah, that bad. And as I said, there's some cities that are better and worse than others. But Detroit is cleaning it up, but there's a lot of houses, and it's a big project to try to reassess and reevaluate every single building in the city of Detroit. Detroit has a huge footprint. So that takes time, it takes money, it takes resources. The state does put in a certain percentage of number of homes they have to remeasure every year, but in order for them to get to the point where they've redone that with everything in Detroit, who knows? But some of the records have been very well updated. I always say if you look at the sketch and you see the numbers, the dimensions in solid numbers, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. Because we have to, by lending standards, we have to round every single measurement to the nearest inch or tenth of a foot, okay? And some assessing offices voluntarily will do that, but not all. Some only do it, if they do it, they're doing it kicking and screaming. They don't want to do it, right? And I just dealt with this on an appraisal issue recently and nothing to do with assessing, where the appraiser actually, and I'm seeing this a lot in Detroit too, where some appraisers are getting lazy. I wouldn't say that, no, I take that back. They're not getting lazy. They're especially dealing with banks, they've been giving us more and more work, more and more responsibility, longer reports, more information and data we have put in there. But let me tell you, the income's not going up along with the workload. See where I'm going with this, right? Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I do more work now with attorneys than I do for the lending institutions because I just got fed up with it. I'm like, you have me do 5 times as much work, but you won't pay me even a regular standard fee, or they go to a bidding war where who can do the cheapest and fastest appraisal. Is that really who you want evaluating your biggest investment of your life?
Yeah.
No, you want somebody who's qualified. Yes, sir.
That C grade you were telling about, C1, C2.
Condition ratings, they're called.
Is that across the board in every city, or is that more of a Detroit thing?
No, that's actually appraising standards.
Okay.
that has nothing to do with the city. I was just mentioning that's how we do so in appraisal reporting. The standard form wants these ratings. City has their own.
I think they do like
Yeah.
excellent, good, fair, and poor.
It depends on the city.
Yeah.
5 minutes, okay. All right, 5 minutes. I gotta get going here. So, all right, can we move on to the next slide?
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, back to this, reasons for appeal. Inaccuracies are easy. And like I said, if you suspect that the city has you having more square footage than what you have, hire me. $150, I come out and I measure it for you. And then you can take that to that type of documentation is a whole lot better than, I think my house is smaller. You get what I'm saying? Right, go ahead, sir.
So the square footage, they use livable square footage, meaning finished space, right? Is that
Correct.
what you argue, not let's say you have a bungalow with an unfinished attic, that's.
They won't count that then. Yeah, there is specific criteria for things to count towards living space. And again, assessing offices in Michigan and lenders have different criteria. Lenders require a finished area to have at least an 84-inch ceiling height from floor to ceiling, okay? Once you get in that bungalow where the walls are sloping, once that slope hits 5 feet, which I always do just by walking straight because I'm really short, so I'm like where my head bumps is where my thing goes, right? So the areas with less than 5 feet ceiling height are not included in living space. And this has been a big problem with the old bungalows. A lot of these old bungalows have ceiling heights of less than 7 feet. I say 84 inches because my laser measure was stuck on inches for so many years. I just got used to calling everything in inches. So it has to be 84 inches, so there's that. Trying to think if there's anything else. Any other specific questions? Go.
Quickly, I own a single condo unit in a 10-unit historical building.
Okay.
How much does it's a 100-year-old building, how much does the condition of the building impact the appraisal of the single use?
Well, if the overall mechanicals and structure is fine, I mean, it would impact it if there was, if it wasn't working. If something isn't working, if something's past its life expectancy, that's okay. Is it still operable? Is it still serving its purpose? So in regards to what you're speaking of, the appraiser is going to predominantly focus on your unit, but when it comes to condos, then you also have to address the complex and the amenities and everything associated with that development, which, yes, does include the condition of the improvements to the building and whether or not you have a swimming pool or do you have tennis courts or do you have a homeowners association. All those things come into play in an appraisal report. But yeah, if you're going to fight value, you need an appraisal report, period. It's the best thing you can do because they're trying to say your house is worth this. Now you have documentation that no, it's not, it's worth this. And here's a big, thorough argument for the case. Documentation, photos, the whole 9 yards. It's measured, everything. So, any other questions? Go ahead.
If you don't mind.
No,
So my
I'll
uncle
get you, Lauren.
built a house in Troy and had a homeowner's permit, he built it from ground up. And they're claiming, he has that double ceiling family room.
Yep.
That goes across.
Yep.
And they're claiming that is double square footage.
Nope. You can fight that. You can fight that. Thank you. That was an excellent example of a fightable offense. During the building boom in the early right after 2000, remember, that's when every spring I was covered in mud from head to toe because we were doing all this new construction appraisals and nobody had sod in yet, and I had to walk around the exterior of the house and measure it. Not fun. I felt like I should have charged a mud surcharge fee on that, right? It was a nightmare. I mean, I've gotten stuck, anyway, those are stories for another time. But, that's a perfect example of an inaccuracy. When you have those, especially new construction where you have that big cutout, okay? They are not allowed to count it twice when it's only one floor, period. Period, yes. It's important to note. Go ahead.
And the square footage isn't measured from the outside, right?
No, it is measured from the outside. Unless you're an attached condominium, if you're an attached condominium, we use interior measurements of the outside of the structure, not the interior walls, but you know what I mean, the perimeter, the footprint is what we use. That's the only time we use interior measurements. However, when like on bungalows, I'm not crawling up on your roof and drilling a hole through your roof to see where that wall ends. No, I'm going to measure the exterior as best everything I can on the outside, go into the house, upstairs, and then I will use interior measurements. However, wherever there's an exterior wall, I'm going to be adding on half a foot for consistency's sake. Yes, all walls are not exactly a half foot, but it helps to be consistent. And we can't actually measure it, so I just use half a foot. I just did that yesterday in a bungalow over in Berkeley, where the upstairs was chopped out and it had the little Cape Cod windows and everything. And I did all the interior measurements, and then every wall, I added on 1/2 foot for every exterior wall. So Lauren had a question.
And then that'll be our last question
Yep,
for
sorry.
Roberta.
Sorry.
We'll get Tom on, and
sorry.
we'll have tons of questions for him.
Yep.
I just want to say I've used Roberta quite a bit in the past, and she has helped all of my clients all of the time. Normally, when you buy a house, the mortgage company charges you like $600 for your appraisal.
More than that now.
So $495 is really reasonable.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I also just wanted to educate everyone on, I had this year Detroit and Ferndale lose 3 of my clients' principal residence exemptions. So when you're at closing, you definitely need to keep all of that. They actually lost my tax transfer affidavit, and so for some reason now I'm dealing with all of that kind of bullshit. So keep your paperwork at closing, and then make sure that you go to the assessors and that you like double document it, put it in your email or something, because it is possible that they lose that paperwork, and I don't know why, but they lost 3 of them this year.
That's why they tell you to bring in 2 copies. When you go to file your form, they'll give you 2 copies. One you turn in, the other one you have them stamp that it's been received, and with a date and time on it. That's your proof that you've done it. So whenever, I mean, you'll never probably remember that when the day comes when you go to move or whatever, but just keep that in mind. You want proof of anything you've done. So anything else real quick?
That's the last thing we talk about before you walk out of the room.
Yeah, not all of them. I've seen some just skim over it so fast that the people don't hear it. Yeah, it is. It's very important. All good? All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I hope I was helpful. Actually, on the page, here's my information, this page. Everything's right there. You got it. Pardon? Oh. Forgot about that.
And may I put this on your lapel? Okay. Here we go. Okay, if anybody needs to use the bathroom, it's just through that door right there.
Let's give them 5 minutes.
Okay, we'll take 5 if anybody wants to get up and stretch.
But I will say those are reasonable prices for the appraiser. $150 to walk around a building right now in February. That's a pretty good price. And measure and do all that.
Good.
So how much? 20 minutes?
30 minutes.
Okay.
I mean, if we gave people 5, yeah, I would say people are going to want to stay after and ask you questions.
Sure.
So go, I would say 30 minutes and then whatever people want to ask.
You did a great job, and it was great to see Roberta too.
Yeah.
She did great. Made my job a lot easier. I'm just going to talk about the tribunal.
Please, yeah, that would be great.
You know, now I feel like I.
She gonna always figure out somewhere to do. She like, oh well. I said I was gonna leave by 12:30. Would you mind if I left early? Right. Okay, I have a problem. Thank you. What you got? Because I have a nail appointment. Love you. I know.
So it's not a metric, it's not an issue with errors, it's more about like what they're
You know, I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do it if it's just 3 to 5 comparables. Okay.
Well, we need an appraisal, and would you do that too?
but not in your
What's called evaluation analysis, because that helps me settle cases out there. And what same kind of thing, 3 to 5, but it'd be a little longer. Say evaluation analysis for December 31st of the previous year, and 90% of these cases settle. That maybe I had folks do that. Great.
It's been a minute. Good to see you too. How you been?
Good. It's always good to see you all.
So you got one for coffee, 17. If you didn't get, I will call you back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, but you know what, Diamond?
half cost even? Nope.
So we didn't
It wasn't ready.
all four.
It was like, we gotta come back in 20 minutes. When I got here, it was like this.
All they have to do is call the assessor.
Can you handle that? If
Call them? Okay.
you have an issue, let me know.
Okay, because I called them.
I spoke to someone, like, I was on the phone with somebody who has access to their menu. Put it on the menu board.
Yeah, so they figured out who it was. It was a new person. And then they was like, we don't even have the ticket. Literally, as I'm standing at the front desk, the ticket is under the bottom. So she bends down, you can hear, she bent down and take it. She was like, "Is this?" I said, "Oh no, we ordered this yesterday."
They don't want you to.
So they was literally scrambling. They did their best, but
I'm not gonna lie, it was frustrated.
I know.
Because I'm like,
I know.
I understand that. Can y'all call them and tell them to make it? Like, do I have to call them?
And I'm literally like, I can go to locations. I'm like, but I really need it. And when I got there, jam packed. So they got to do this large order plus people that's coming in. One lady started yelling at them. I'm like,
That was automatic. If the
an
assessor
hour
says,
behind. An hour.
do this, BSNA account, it's just false. Everybody's liking those sandwiches.
Because I'm like, I guess.
Sydney's happy.
Once you get started on it.
Now, where are those from? I've never heard of that. Unfortunately for me, my wife wants to go to retails. I can't get what I want.
You want to eat after?
Rocco's is just like almost you don't think that building or do you work?
I work for Jan.
Go there.
Questions about the building?
I'm sorry?
Do you have questions about the building?
Can you rent the space?
It's called Hunt Street Station.
You're in charge, so whenever you want.
All right, we're gonna get started in 1 minute. So.
Questions. I don't know if you would know either of these, but one, is there anything in Michigan that says that
Get
if you're a
started in
veteran,
1
65
minute.
and older, you don't have to pay as much property taxes?
I don't know, but Jan might know.
Okay.
And what's the other one?
The other one was if somebody had
And I
a piece
do
of
what
property that
Jan
they
says.
got in the
Smart man.
auction, but the paper was never turned over to the city. They'll have to owe all of the back taxes, like the taxes will go up and they'll owe all that, right?
That's a good question. Again, I would defer to
Jan.
Jan.
Okay.
Or if Frank is still around, Frank is back there. He does title work. He might know.
Oh, okay. Those two.
Sorry for your pain.
Thank you. Oh, okay. For anybody who did not RSVP and we do not have your email, you can use scan the QR code. That'll register you, and then we'll make sure you get the slide deck, all the resources. I'd like to welcome Tom Fredericks. As I mentioned, Tom is a property tax attorney, and he also used to sit on the Michigan Tax Tribunal, so that's going to be the focus of his presentation, is kind of what you expect from that, and then he'll have plenty of time for all of your questions.
We can fast forward the slide.
Yep. I'll
You know, the most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. But I can tell you for sure, the tribunal is here to help. Most of the time, all the people I know at the tribunal, and Kopke, who ran the tribunal for about 20 years, he would always correct me if I didn't try to help people. And I always got the assessor to talk to you in the hallway. And one of the things I always told the assessor and the property owner is, You know, you want to reach a deal that you can be comfortable with. You don't want me to make this decision for you. And I think that's good advice, especially because the tribunal can do what it wants. And that includes raising your taxes. So if you file a frivolous case, watch out. You know, that's all I've got to say about that. I want to introduce my wife, Natalia, who will be walking around. If you don't want to raise your hand and ask a question, you can write it down. And if you look at your handouts, we have questions and answers from last year. And we'll answer your questions in writing, sending around an email, you know, at some point. What is the tribunal? You know, does that mean 3 judges? No. It's a Latin term where it comes from a Latin word tribune. The tribune is something that decides or determines a thing. And the tribunal has unilateral authority and to make whatever decision they want. And in fact, what I kept getting drummed into my head was the tribunal makes an independent determination of value, independent of anything that your assessor says or does, and they are terrified when you appeal to the tribunal because I can tell you I did about several hundred cases in Detroit, over 1,000 throughout Michigan. And when I discover that an assessor is not treating you fairly, they find out. I get mad and I tell them in person. I've got a case right now as an advocate, but I had several as a judge where the city is charging you for a building that doesn't exist. Right now I've got a client named Simon who has a 3-parcel, area on Mac. 2 buildings, being taxed for 2 buildings. He only has 1 building on all 3 parcels. And to explain how good it is to file with the tribunal, and because they can do whatever they want at the tribunal, I'm asking, because of the mutual mistake of being taxed and paying taxes on a building that doesn't exist, I'm asking for a refund going back 5 years. You know why? Because the tribunal can do anything it wants. If you don't ask for it, you don't get it. Now, there is and you can get this from the Michigan Department of Treasury, you can get a copy of a letter opinion that allows the Board of Review to go back 1 year and correct mistakes like that. And of course, the city came back and told me about that advisory opinion from Treasury, and it doesn't matter. Tribunal can ignore that. The tribunal can ignore anything they want and do plain old justice for you people. There are 2 areas of appeal that you can do. One is, of course, the small claims division. If you look at page 1 of your handouts, and Natalia did a good job of labeling those, small claims involve appeals of no more than $100,000, and that's assessed value. Okay, and you know what? We're going to talk about small claims in more detail, but the second place of decision making is called the ET, or entire tribunal hearings, and those are in Lansing. Small claims cases are in the county where you have the property, Here in Wayne County, that would be at Cadillac Place. Used to be the GM building, remember? That's where I used to work and do all those hundreds of cases. So that was a good experience for me. You know, I don't have to do much on a lot of the slides we have because Jan and Roberta did such a great job. So we're going to skip a lot of stuff to get right to the tribunal and what it does. But before we do that, I want you to turn to page 2 and take the property tax quiz. By the time this seminar is over, you've got to get all the right answers. So please take your time and just go through with your free pens from our wonderful title company. And yeah, those are great pens, by the way.
You have extra?
He needs a pen.
No, need a package.
The what?
I need a package.
Package. Package. Anybody need a pen? We got pens. Okay. So you have to get the right answers by the end of this seminar. Nobody leaves without getting the right answers. All right. Page 3. Let's take a look at page 3. The only thing I need to say about the vocabulary, because Jan and Roberta have done such a good job, is to say how much I agree with electronic mail or certified letters, you know, that you send to reserve your place on that board of review. They will lose it, they'll lie to you, and if you go to the tribunal, somebody will get mad at them, like I used to. All right, certified, if you want to mail it, electronic, do that. All right. Can we go back? Yeah. Okay, now let's go forward. There we go. Property tax vocabulary. Any questions about any of those words, terms? All right. I would say with regard to principal residence exemption, if you have 100% residential or 50, your appeal to the small claims court is absolutely free. If you have commercial property, it would be $250. And we'll get into more of the fees for going to the tribunal. Let's go forward. Let's go, Sid. Finding your TV, it's all over. As Roberta and Jan have said, that's the number that matters when it comes to calculating your taxes. So take a look at that one, you know, for sure. Let's go, Sid. I like that term, isn't it? Yeah. It's nice to hear your name, isn't it? It is. Yeah. Cost approach is what your record card says. And that's what the city uses to determine how much it would cost to build your property. And your record card includes a diagram of the buildings, probably a photo, and about 2 or 3 pages of different figures and sizes. And by the way, Roberta's offer to walk around and measure your building for $150 is a pretty good price, I think. But anyhow, the city doesn't want you to have this. They want you to use, what was it called?
BSNA.
Yeah, I don't use it, so I don't even mention it in my seminars, it doesn't have enough detail for me to adequately represent a client. So I like to get the record card from them, and geez, in the last week, I've received from my clients about 15 of them. Yeah.
It varies by city and township in regards to the estimated amount of information that's provided on there. Some cities put a lot of information on there, they'll put on all of this data and more. Others do not. For example,
Yeah.
Detroit is pretty good because
Yeah.
they make you pay for it, but you come look at your
Well,
sketch online.
Roberta, let me stop you a little bit, okay? That's my seminar. Every time I had a case in Detroit at the Cadillac place, the city was required to give us the record card. And sometimes that was the first time my client ever saw it, or the person in my courtroom. Now they're my clients. The city doesn't want you to get those, even if they have them. So you have to demand them and call the assessor or the number that's on your assessment notice. All right? That's true all day long. Get that, and I'm getting them. In fact, I got a call from a client while I was sitting back there, and he told me that he got it today. So get it yourself. All right. Sales approach is the next approach. What I want to say, though, before we get into sales, if you have a bad roof, let's say you need a new roof, in the previous approach, I use that for negotiations to try to get a lower assessment. But if you get the new roof, your taxes go right back up maybe the next year. So that can work for or against you depending on where you're at. Let's see. Sales of the property itself. I'm finding cases where that becomes very good evidence for the tribunal, who can do whatever it wants. So if you bought the property anywhere near tax day, which is December 31st of the previous year, and even in the fall, if you bought it in the fall or summer, I like to argue that as a way to defeat an increased assessment. However, what I like is 3 to 5 comparable sales as close to December 31st as you can get them. All right? And that type of information is really good for settlement. But I agree with you, Roberta, that an appraisal is the very best evidence. Yeah, and it's the most persuasive. But think about this. If you go to the tribunal and you've got an appraisal and all the city has is the record card, you're tending to win. In my experience as a judge, an appraisal trumps the record card, without a doubt. But the appraisal has to be done effective 12/31 of the previous year. That's called tax day. All right, and here are some other thoughts about what the sales should be, especially arm's length transactions. So foreclosure sales really don't matter much. And Roberta, you do adjustments?
Yes.
Yeah, you got to have adjustments. I like to see, when I was a judge, adjustments of less than 10%. If you got adjustments of 100%, it's junk. Yeah. So, get a good appraisal, and you tend to win more of these appeals. Yes, sir.
Just back to one of your previous sentences. If we're in the process of filing now, is it too, since we're past 12/31, does it still make sense to get an appraisal for this upcoming?
Absolutely.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
It wasn't pre-12/31 you needed.
Yeah, and you were asking me about a mistake or something right before the
Yeah.
seminar. And my comment about that is, if you file for a 26 appeal, I would like to include a mutual mistake paragraph that talks about 2025. Not that the Board of Review will let you go back that far. Even though the Treasury says they can, they'll try to deny that. The tribunal can do whatever it wants.
The tribunal can do whatever it wants.
They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So if you don't ask for it,
Yeah.
when you file for 26, you're not going to get it.
And so that, and just to make sure, assessor, board of review, tribunal, that's the order we're going with?
Well, that's right.
Okay.
Assessor, Board of Review, tribunal, either small claims or entire tribunal.
And you can't skip the board of review to go right to
Yes, you can if you're commercial or industrial.
thanks.
Residential, you've got to go to the Board of Review. Doggone it, you got to go. And, you know, an email filing before the Board of Review counts. And I think, Jan, you mentioned how they'll deny that you made the request or whatever. But you can actually attend the Board of Review by sending an email with 3 to 5 real nice comps from either Jan or Roberta, and you just attended. Now, I would say 2 things about the Board of Review. They want to know what you think the value is, and they want to know why. Okay. Honey, are you walking around with anybody want to write anything down, just do it, and we'll get you. We'll take care of you. So that's, anything else on the Board of Review you want to add, Jan? Or
I just want to explain to people maybe what adjustments are. Adjustments are the difference between a component of your property and another property you're comparing it to. So if your property is 1,500 square feet and the other property you're using to compare it to is 1,600 square feet, there's going to be an adjustment of 100 square feet. What I don't, you know, Roberta would be able to speak to what that amount is per square foot. Same thing if you have a 1-car garage versus a 2-car garage, or if you have 2 full bathrooms versus 1.5 baths, something like that. So whenever there's an appraisal, there's always an adjustment to try to make the property that you own and what you're comparing it to be as similar as possible. That's all that means.
Thank you very much. All right. We're going to talk about the income approach, which I really don't use that much. You know, I think the sales approach is what most judges are used to and see, appraisals, record cards, things like that. But what I do is, as an advocate now, is and if you look at page 5 of your handouts, it's all there. I look at the income approach to support the sales approach. And I've got a couple reasons for that. Like, geez, I had this, and it's on page 1, but I had this huge medical facility that I reduced taxes, I think $80,000, whatever I said there, a year, because half of it was vacant. So vacancy rates relate to the income approach, and you know, I find that helps support my sales analysis and gets the assessor's attention. The vacancy rate's really critical there. And repairs too. Simon's building, the one that really is there on the 3 parcels, needs a new roof. So of course I got a estimate from a roofer that said Simon's going to have to spend $52,000 on a new roof, and you know, that relates to you know, a negotiations strategy that works when you want to win these cases. Most of them settle. Tribunal doesn't really want to hear them. You know, I, as a judge, would get people out in the hallway, try to settle it, and usually we did. I'd say in about 80% of the cases settle. Okay, let's go, Sid. Boards of review, the other thing is, they do handle poverty cases, for example. What else do I want to mention here? Board of review, agricultural cases for March, July, and December. And the board of reviews can fix errors on record cards at either of those, any of those 3 sessions. So in December of this year, you could actually still try to get a record card fixed if there is an error there. The board of review can go back to the previous year too, according to the Michigan Department of Treasury. They don't want you to know that. If you need the analysis, I'd be happy to. I'll send it to you, Jan.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the next slide, Sid. Okay. All right. Small claims. Deadline is July 31st. And the residential ag have to go to the board. And, I get this question a lot. Do you really want to, can you help me with a small claims case? I can help, but I don't want to go. Because you only get 10 minutes. 10 minutes before the small claims judge. The assessor gets 10 minutes. And then there's Q&A from the judge. I've done over 1,000 of these cases as a judge, so I know what I'm talking about. You don't want to take an attorney to the small claims hearing. You're going to waste your money. You want to take Roberta or Jan, who knows the values. And, having the appraiser there to explain your appraisal is what you want that 10 minutes to do. You don't want an attorney. Now, what I do is kind of give you some advice on an opening statement, and I like to write it down, just a one-page explanation that you hand to the judge, and then you read it in front of the judge during that 10 minutes. And what that opening statement includes is your rationale for a tax reduction. And that's the first thing it's supposed to do. The number 2 thing you do is make it easier for the judge to rule for you. You put in big letters why you should get a tax reduction. And if I help you write it, I'm going to write it in a way that the judge can lift the language and put it in his or her decision. Make it easier. When I was at the Cadillac place, I would do 15 cases a day sometimes. Most of them would settle, but I'd have my laptop and I'm trying to, keep up with what's going on. And I'm up there, basically writing the decision while you're testifying. So, handing this opening statement just makes it easier for me to rule in your favor. So why wouldn't you do that? You know why you would, the assessor doesn't want you to do it? Because it's irrelevant. This is irrelevant. It's not evidence. I object. Well, here's a tip that nobody's told you ever. At the tribunal, the great tribunal, who can do whatever it wants, we're told to allow everything in to the file as evidence. You could hand the phone book, and the judge would include it.
Hi. So with the BOR, is Is it win or loss? Is it like, do you come with, as in a, whether small claims or otherwise, like with a specific ask and you either get your ask or like, is there some middle ground that they can sort of just?
Well, you want to ask for a particular number, and we do that in small claims and for the entire tribunal. You ask for, true cash, assessed, and taxable. Here's what your number is for 2026. Right. This is what I want. And can they agree to something in between? Absolutely. Happens all the time. Okay. But, Now, so where was I?
So once you go to the Michigan Tribunal and they say yes or whatever, they allow it for 2026, you have to go back to 2027?
Yeah.
So you have to go back every year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was talking a little bit about that opening statement, wasn't I? And here's the key thing. It comes in, the judge takes it home or to his office or her office, and it's right there. There's your position, and you're helping them write the decision for you. And believe me, at the tribunal, we're trained to try to find a way to help the property owner. We're the opposite of what the assessor does, to try to, save money for their coffee and donuts and whatever, that stuff is.
So you guys don't make a ruling at that point in time?
Usually not.
Oh, okay. You would come back?
But if you settle the case, we do, in the hallway, and come back in. I write it up and say, okay, here's what it is. All right, so what else do we got here? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, because we're broadcasting this live on YouTube. So somebody asked,
Oh my God.
as far as commercial property, does it work similarly, the assessment process? Can you talk a little bit about non-residential property as far as how that assessment process or appeals process goes?
Well, I'm not as good about assessments as Roberta is, but I can tell you that commercial industrial usually goes to the full tribunal, more values. Ford Motor Company, their plant goes right to the entire tribunal, and they don't have to go to the board of review, just residential and agricultural. So there's a different deadline too, though. You have to appeal commercial industrial by May 31st. So I'd like to get going on negotiations fairly soon because you've got to have time maybe to get an appraisal. A shopping mall is harder to appraise, than a 3-bedroom bungalow or whatever. So you get going on that, and we're going to cover it in the next couple slides. So be patient. Okay. See, entire tribunal there. Thanks to Sydney, we got that up here. We talked about the May 31st deadline for commercial, industrial. It's pretty complicated. The way you serve, you have to send, 2 of these folks certified letters, and if you don't, you're in default. So you got to serve all these folks. You have to serve, of course, the city or township, all right? And if you don't, you get defaulted, you get kicked out. You have to send the tribunal proof of service that you actually served the city. And then we've got a pre-hearing statement on page 7 that your attorney, and I really encourage you to get an attorney for these kind of cases because you have to fill out, there's a discovery cutoff that's usually about 3 or 4 months before the hearing date. And you have to do this accurately. And if you don't do this accurately, they kick you out. I had a client try to do it himself, one of these, last year, and I saved him at the last minute. He had filed a ET case in small claims, and they just dismissed the case. And I said, wait, no, please. Can we amend our pleadings, and you can do that. But it's a cost of $50 a motion. Everything with an ET or entire tribunal is, you file anything, it's $50 after the petition, which is, fast forward. Yeah, another one. Filing fees, $250, $400, $600, depending on how much is in dispute. And motion fees are $50. Now can we go back? Yep. Now that's talent. I would screw that up, right, Natalia? She rescues me all the time. Let's see. How many folks on the tribunal? 7. All right. And one of them would get these kinds of cases. You'd add an ET case, you'd have a court reporter, the rules of evidence applies. You know, if you're not an attorney, good luck. Appraisal is your best witness. So guess what your best evidence is? The appraisal. All right. And there would be cross-examination. Okay, so anyhow, all right, another fast forward. Okay. If, as a judge, I screwed up at all, you would have a chance to file exemptions or reconsiderations. And you do that in either the small claims or ET forums. And, you know, the full tribunal will look at a decision and decide if justice was done or not, and they could make a different decision. But after that, and this is why I'm so interested in assuring you that the tribunal can do what it wants, the only recourse for you is to go to the Michigan Court of Appeals, not the circuit court, not a local judge. This is a powerful agency. And the only thing that the Court of Appeals can do is take a look at the law that the judge used. And if they use the wrong law, they can't look at the appraisal and say, oh, the appraiser was crazy and this doesn't work. And they don't do any of that at the Court of Appeals. They look at things like, how many years back can the tribunal go? And I really don't know the answer to that, because they can do whatever they want. All right. Okay, another fast forward from Sid, and we'll, yeah. No new evidence goes in. So you can see how important it is to have a good appraisal, maybe, and a good witness to testify about what it says, and good comparable sales, maybe. All right, fast forward to that. Answer the quiz. Here they are in front of your very eyes. Just take a look at the number of dots.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, Jan?
So my friend Brenda right over there, she filed at the Michigan Tax Tribunal last year, got a letter from the tribunal saying that the city has a certain number of days to respond, never responded. What's the next move?
Well, I think the city's in default.
Yeah, they are, absolutely are in default.
Okay, thank you, Jan.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's an easy question. I think we had one over here.
Do you automatically
Yeah, you did.
win?
Huh?
Do you automatically win whatever you want?
Well, in a way you do, because the city cannot testify at the hearing.
Okay.
And so whatever the judge hears is your side of the story. Keep in mind, the tribunal makes an independent determination of value. So you and your friend have got to be honest about the evidence submitted, because the tribunal can look at that evidence and say, you're out to lunch. I can't believe this. So you got to be somewhat fair-minded about it, but the city can't testify at all.
Would you recommend to just go to the city and say, hey, you're in fault, let's work together?
I do that.
I know how much power I have right now?
I would,
Okay.
yeah. And if they don't, if the city doesn't know what kind of trouble they're in, have them give me a call.
Okay.
I'll be happy to tell. Yes, sir.
So I brought this up with Tom before this got started, and Tom pointed out, like, there's gonna be a docket number. Look it up on the Michigan Tax Tribunal's website.
Yeah.
And you'll see if the city has responded since. And lo and
Okay.
behold, very one I looked up yesterday, the city responded to, and they're just asking that, they stick by their decision. And so it's still kind of up in the air, so you may want to check that docket
Okay.
number.
Thank you, David.
David, that was wonderful timing, because I needed to lubricate myself. Yes, sir.
So just to confirm, the Board of Trustees, that's not something you typically get involved with. You go, or the BOT, right? You're dealing with step 3, right?
Well, I mean,
Trying to figure out when do we reach out to you to say, like, hey, we need your help?
I think you're talking about like a residential case? All right.
But it wouldn't be.
All right. I don't like to waste your money, okay? Because you can do the border review yourself.
Border review, sorry, yeah.
And you're probably going to lose anyway.
Right.
So then you're going to appeal to the tribunal.
Yep.
You're probably better off calling Jan or Roberta, to get some comparables.
Yep.
And send them an email, and you're going to lose, and then call me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Follow-up question.
Just being real, just being honest. Yeah.
Follow-up question for you specifically. Sorry.
Yeah.
Everyone knows you over there at the tribunal. What do they think of you?
That's a tough question. I have a big garden, and I used to take tomatoes in.
Yeah.
I can tell you, they probably still talk about my tomatoes. That's all I can tell you. If you hear what they say about me, let me know. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
So I got my property about 2 years ago, and the equitized value and the true cash value has doubled in those 2 years. So if I get the state equitized value lowered, is that going to affect my taxable value though? Will it still lower my property taxes? Because I could get the state equitized value lower, but it might not affect my.
That's absolutely true.
Is that possible?
Yeah, you got to get that taxable down. That's the only one that matters. Okay, we can fast forward if you would. Okay, so let's see what else we got. Yeah, we're into questions. Yeah, go ahead.
I bought a commercial building in the Wayne County Property Tax Auction, so it was a fair arm's length transaction. I bought it for $43,000. So the property was reassessed at the state equalized value. I got an $8,000 tax bill. So I'm gonna appeal for this current year to lower it. How would you suggest that I get a path to the tribunal to do something about my 25 bill, like getting that?
The only thing you can do is that, I think it's 53B under the Michigan General Property Tax Act. It's called the error, mutual mistake of fact, I think is what it's called. Sorry, I'll send that to Jan, as I mentioned. Now, do I?
No, I mean, I think if people want to stay with questions, we can keep going. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, but yeah, you're looking for 25 at mutual mistake of fact. And if you find one of those, you can ask the tribunal to go back a year or two. If they're nice, they might do that. Next question.
How often, like I asked this question earlier, how often had there been a case where you guys actually increased the SCD or taxable value as part of your decision for the tribunal? Then what the?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, we got questions here. Thank you, Natalia. Just rare, once a year maybe. Okay, next one. Don't be shy. All right, here's a couple. You know what? I'm going to write these answers up. These are kind of, we will send an email to all you with that, and I'll talk a little bit more in the email about mutual mistake of fact under 53B and how important that is. And maybe by then, I'll have some news about Simon's case. I'm telling you that the city is real nervous. Because, you know, in the General Property Tax Act, it can be a misdemeanor for an assessor to make a mistake like that. Can you imagine? Property A, property B, property C. They say there are 2 buildings and there's only one. Somebody could go to jail over that. Yeah.
I had bought a residential property. It went up the next year, obviously, with the assessment.
Yeah.
I bought it at the assessment office. They told me I was wrong. I didn't take it to the appeal because I was actually too late to get a proper appeal process to the assessor.
Oh.
They told me I was wrong. I kept saying, I'm right. There's a mistake on this. They finally, in December, told me, you're right, there is a mistake. And we assessed you incorrectly. So now they owe me back the money.
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
Great.
Okay, but they said, even though I paid my taxes in August because I didn't want to get penalized, even though I knew it was wrong, when they told me I was wrong, but then in December they say, nope, you're right. So now they owe me that money back, and they say, we can't get it for you for another 90 days. Is there anything I can do to speed up that process? Because that's a lot of money I would like to get back that they've already had for 4 months.
Do you have a written decision?
They sent me a letter.
Yeah. Does it say at the bottom to go to the Michigan Treasury or Tribunal if you want to appeal?
I probably have the letter with me.
Yeah, well.
It does say to go to, I think, the tribunal.
All right, I would call the tribunal. Oh, I'm glad you asked this. If you call and say, I'm not an attorney, I don't know what I'm doing, here's what happened, the people over there will bend over backwards for you. I found they can really help you. They may give you better advice than I can.
I think there might be a state law about how long they have to refund you.
I think there is.
But if you call and ask.
Yeah.
People at the state of Michigan are super helpful if you call them.
If you say I'm not an attorney. Yeah. Question back there, maybe? Yep.
Regarding the primary residence.
Yes, ma'am.
There are 2 people on the title.
Mm-hmm.
I live, this is my primary residence, but my daughter who is on the title lives in California. So if they didn't pay, that this was the primary residence.
I think you're the primary resident. Yeah, and your daughter is not.
I was the one who paid the mortgage.
Yeah, you should get that 100%. And you can appeal that to the tribunal too. Okay, that's Big 10-4 there. Yes, ma'am.
So, in regards to the city of Detroit, okay, between the year 2009 and 2016, the citizens of Detroit were overtaxed.
I agree.
So, how would I go about handling that? Because a lot of people, I don't think, have done anything, and then the city of Detroit,
Yeah, well.
what they tried to do was have an incentive program where, oh, you could get 10 points if you apply for a job in the city. You can get a 0% loan with the SBA. You know, they had all these other different things, but there's still a lot of people that have not.
Well, you know, you can only appeal 2026. I'm so sorry.
Even though they made the mistake.
Well, you can appeal 2026 and ask the tribunal to do whatever it wants. You know, it'd be worth a try. You might run into somebody that's generous over there. But realistically, everybody's saying, and Jan and Roberta have said, and they're right, you know, you appeal 26, and maybe a good attorney can help you go back in time. Not often done, but try it.
Has it happened?
Yeah. Well, and with Simon, I'm hoping it happens, because I'm talking 5 years back, you know.
And you represented people in that case, in cases like that?
Not too often, you know. But, you know, for sure I could use that treasury thing. Anyway, we're gonna send you some information on this. It's an area that I've talked to a number of different attorneys, smarter than me, who don't know the answer to these questions about going back in time. It's a real legal thing. We'd have to do some research and go from there. Oh, we got more questions. Yes, ma'am, you had it up.
I'm just curious, did the city tear down Simon's building?
They say no.
Okay.
But it wasn't there when Simon bought it. Now, don't ask me why he didn't look at his record card. I've asked him that question. He's so wealthy, he just writes a check. Okay, over here.
Two quick questions.
Yes, sir.
One, the NEZ zones, how often, and maybe anyone in this room might know the answer, how often does change?
Well, Jan is better to answer that.
So the neighborhood enterprise zone homestead map has only changed once. So it started during the Kilpatrick administration around 2005, and then the maps were updated in 2020. Because only a percentage of the city can be covered. So the city realized, oh, we have some parts of the map that are covering commercial property or vacant land, and that's not a good use of that space, so let's redistribute it so we can cover as much residential as possible. So I don't imagine it will be done anytime soon again.
So part two of that is with the new mayor, do we foresee any decreases in residential tax compared to
Well, the millage
literally
rate,
anywhere else?
the millage rate in Detroit is the only one that's been going down. It's gone down 1 mil every year, and 2026 is going down 3 mils. I believe, that's what Duggan said, that he submitted the budget for a 3 mil reduction. So I think we're gonna be around 62 this year, which is like the lowest we've been
Yeah.
since I've been in real estate. And hopefully we can keep bringing that down. My thing is I wanna start advocating more from like a political standpoint. Like I already said I wanna meet with my city council member, maybe try to get in front of the mayor, just to talk about people's general concerns. So if you, reach out to me and I'll try to keep everybody updated about that stuff, but I think that's the next move. Obviously, the city can only continue to lower the millage rate so much, like they should, as they're collecting more tax revenue, the millage rate should come down. But that's an uphill battle for us to all fight with that. So, you're welcome.
You know, I would suggest, we got so many questions. If you were to send me or Jan an email, we'll get you on the list of the cards. We got those, and we'll answer them in writing.
Yeah, then we can share them with everybody.
We can share them with everybody. Unless somebody has something, I need an answer right now.
I need a clarification if I can.
Yeah.
At the tribunal, am I fighting my SAV or my taxable value or both? Is
Both.
fighting my SAV fighting my taxable value?
You have to, you're appealing the assessment, basically. Yeah.
So the SAV.
And then they determine what your TV is. And you had something, Sid?
I was just
Yeah. Okay, so we'll answer your questions later or up here.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you,
What a great group.
Not even pertaining to this, but it has to do with property boundary lines.
Yeah?
So this dispute with my neighbor, they kept encroaching on my lawn.
Oh, no.
So this happened January 25, and
Did you have a survey?
I got a survey
Wow.
last year around
Good.
June, May, June, and even showed it